those of you who don't know, I'm Southside Trey. And I call myself that because I'm from the Southside, the South Side of Chicago. And being a Bulls fan, I'm about to say something and do something that I never thought that I would do or say. Today, I'm here to let the world know that I'm going for the Indiana Pacers to win the NBA championship. I know Chicago, I know. But yes, I'm rooting for the Indiana Pacers to win the NBA championship. I mean, what choice do we really got? This the closest we gonna get to a championship in a while as a Bulls fan. Indianapolis is just down the road, 2 hours away. So when they win this championship, worldwide classic, we will be in attendance. We gonna rep Indiana since Chicago can't seem to get their act together. But we not here to talk about Chicago. And the way things going, we might not ever talk about the Chicago Bulls. Last night, Game 3, it was a great game. And as a fan of the NBA, that's all I really ask for. I like to see close and competitive games. So first, I want to make sure that we understand, this is not me trying to be bandwagon or last minute. I'm going to tell you a quick story. Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals was Indiana Pacers versus New York Knicks. And when this game was going on, I was actually in Indiana at a restaurant called the Rosebud. If you ever in Indiana, check it out. They pretty good. Blueberry cheesecake, off the chain. As we were having dinner, the concierge were nice enough to put the game on the television for us. The thing that stuck out to me, being the basketball fan that I am, was the post-game interview that Tyrese Halliburton gave. He said something that really resonated to me because I've been watching the NBA for quite some time, and I've seen the best of the best play and the best of the best win championships. And I always tune into the pregame and the postgame just to hear words of inspiration from some of the best athletes in the world. This is no different. Eastern Conference Final, great game. Indiana steals home court advantage. Now I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but Tyrese Halliburton said in the post-game interview that we keep having these crazy games, but we keep finding these ways to win. We keep figuring out ways to win these games each time. So to the naked ear, that probably wasn't much of anything. Just a few words, just some cliche things to say. But for me, it stood out because that's championship speech. That's ring talk that man was speaking. It's the little subtle things like that that's the difference between teams that are gonna win championships. It's all about the mindset. Talent is one thing. You definitely need that. But the mindset and the heart is just as important, if not more. I'll give you a prime example with the same team, the Indiana Pacers, that is. When the NBA season first started, one of the surprises was the Cleveland Cavaliers going on an undefeated streak, upwards to at least 20 games. And they pretty much dominated the Eastern Conference the entire season. So when the playoffs started, they were the #1 seed in the East. When they ran into the Indiana Pacers, I'm pretty sure most people predicted that the Cleveland Cavaliers wouldn't have a problem winning that series. The Indiana Pacers stole that series from the Cleveland Cavaliers. That already should have woke the world up. And I get it. I know Cleveland is new to winning at that level since LeBron, but you still had to take Cleveland serious because of how they started the season. Indiana already showed a glimpse of what they could do when they put Cleveland out of the playoffs. And with me being able to finally watch an entire game with the Pacers and the Knicks for Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals, seeing the way that Indiana rallied back to win that game, and then hearing their leader and captain, Tyrese Halliburton, talk championship talk, I was kind of convinced then that OKC might not have an easy path to the NBA championship. I say that because everybody that I know that's an NBA fan, I would ask them, who do you think is going to win the championship? And almost 99.9% of the people automatically said OKC. Game 1 with the Pacers and Knicks was literally one of the only games that I seen front to back. Little did I know That was a crucial moment into everything that's going on now. Now let's bring it back to Game 3 of the NBA Finals. Everything that Tyrese Halliburton said in that post-game interview is proven to be true all throughout the playoffs. But even now in the NBA Finals, the Indiana Pacers came out in OKC, in Oklahoma City's own arena, and they stole Game 1. Everything that man said, Tyrese Halliburton, was a fact. And again, I know championship speech when I hear it. I know ring talk when I hear it. This man said the right things, and his team is doing all of the right things. Last night with Game 3, this was a great game. And I was skeptical at first because I know OKC and the Pacers are good teams, but I really didn't know much about them because let's face it, it's a brand new league. It's an entirely different league right before our eyes. And it's an amazing thing to see when you really pay attention to it. LeBron James is the oldest player in the league. For somebody like myself that's about the same age as LeBron, that's an incredible thing to witness. I've watched so many NBA players start their careers, and then now I'm seeing different generations of NBA players in their careers. I really hadn't had time to really sit back and just appreciate that aspect of the NBA now. It's a brand new league now. So much so that we don't know who's going to be the top star. We all assume, pick and choose, and have our favorites, but nobody's accomplished anything yet. We're just getting started with this brand new league. And this NBA Finals is the perfect matchup to usher us into the future. This will be the first time that OKC or Indiana could potentially win an NBA championship. Even in that regard, it's nice to see that. It's a breath of fresh air. Game 3 being in Indiana, it was also amazing to see some of the people that was in attendance for the game. You saw guys like Ron Artest or Metal World Peace hanging around with guys like Lance Stevenson, both former Indiana Pacers. And then you saw two guys that really stood out to me. The first of those two guys was Reggie Miller. And for all NBA fans, we would expect Reggie Miller to be in attendance for this type of game. I was really excited to see Reggie Miller there supporting the Indiana Pacers because I know that he's an announcer. And my dad was even saying how Reggie Miller must have took the day off so he could be at the game. But it was cool to see that because I was there watching the last time the Indiana Pacers won the NBA Finals when they went up against the Los Angeles Lakers. You know, the team with Shaq and Kobe, the dynasty. And back then, I was a straight Laker fan. I didn't like anything about the Pacers or Reggie Miller. I mean, we all know Reggie Miller's a great player, but I'm from Chicago. Michael Jordan is the end-all be-all of professional basketball as far as we're concerned. And Mike didn't like Reggie too much, so that means we didn't like Reggie. It was just something about that where I thought that was pretty cool that Reggie is in attendance and he was thoroughly supporting the Indiana Pacers. You could see how much that it means to Reggie for his team to finally get the ring. And I guess for me, I love it because Reggie was the one that almost got them the ring prior. And maybe that's why it means something to me. The guy that was the commander-in-chief of the Indiana Pacers during that era, who led them to an NBA Finals, win, lose, or draw, you got to give Reggie Miller a lot of credit. So respect to Reggie Miller. I guess he'll be another person at the Pacer parade. Now, the last person that was in attendance that stood out to me was Mark Jackson, another former Indiana Pacer, but more recently, and for me, more importantly, a former head coach in the NBA. Now, this stood out to me for a lot of reasons. Similar to Reggie, another Pacer that fought the fight and did what he could to try to get them a championship. I always can respect a soldier, and Mark Jackson was one of the best soldiers on any NBA team, which was always a reason why I knew that if he ever transitioned into being a head coach, he would be one of the best head coaches. And ironically, that's exactly what happened. This man went to Golden State and he helped create the formula to the dynasty that is the Golden State Warriors. And as I was looking on and seeing Mark Jackson watching the game, Mark Jackson had this look on his face. He had this very serious and determined look on his face. And I don't think it had anything to do with the actual game. I think Mark Jackson feels a lot like how I still feel, which is, why is Mark Jackson still not a head coach in the NBA? This has always been a huge problem for me, as well as many others. But for me, if you follow some of my other content, I'm very passionate about situations like this when I feel like people have been done wrong. And I don't even think it's up for debate that Mark Jackson was just done dirty. Just plain and simple. When Mark Jackson was a commentator and I would listen to him call the games, that was the thing that stamped for me that I knew he would be a great head coach. Just like the things that I mentioned with Tyrese Halliburton, the speech that he gave after Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. I know championship talk when I hear it. I know what it sounds like. It's familiar to me. Mark Jackson does nothing but talk championship. Everything that this man talks about when he's assessing the game is spot on. And it's some of the best analysis that you're going to hear when it comes to professional basketball. Even in that regard, I feel like Mark Jackson is still being robbed. I feel like he's not even getting the credit of how great he is when he calls the action. But why is this man not coaching? Mark Jackson looked a little pissed off, if I'm being quite frank. And I'm pissed off right with him because I never let it go. It's a weird world we live in because we so forgetful. I said it earlier and I'm going to say it one more time. Mark Jackson helped create the formula that is the dynasty that turned out to be the Golden State Warriors. That's not hearsay. That's not speculation. It's not opinion. This is the man that sat there and believed in Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. Mark Jackson. I could vividly remember Golden State in the playoffs playing the San Antonio Spurs during the San Antonio Spurs dynasty run when they were at the top of the game. And Golden State was just a young team that was impressing the league by even making the playoffs. And I remember Golden State being very competitive with San Antonio throughout that series. I don't remember what, that wasn't the thing that stuck out to me though. Just like one of my things for the day, I'm a fan of pregame and postgame interviews. I love to hear the greatest athletes break down the game and give insightful information. One of the post-game interviews that Mark Jackson gave is one that just will forever stick with me. And in this post-game interview, Mark Jackson, he got very emotional talking about the Golden State Warriors. This man was almost in tears, just proud of his team. He was proud of the effort that these young guys showed against proven champions, proven legends. And he also said one other thing that still stuck with me to this day. He said that he had the best backcourt in the NBA, that he had two of the greatest shooters in the world on his team. And he's so proud of these guys for stepping up. Those guys just happen to be Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. The thing about that is, at the time, people kind of brushed Mark Jackson off. Because we all know who Steph Curry and Klay Thompson is now in 2025, after the smoke done settled. But when Mark Jackson was the guy that came and put these pieces together and put the battery in their back and then gave this emotional interview when the world still act like they couldn't see the potential that Mark Jackson saw. And I'm pretty sure the type of leader that Mark Jackson is, he's the guy that said the words and gave the encouragement to make Steph Curry and Klay Thompson some of the greatest shooters that we've ever seen. Mark Jackson told no lie in that post-game interview. And there's people who think they know so much about basketball that are allowed to be on national TV for some reason, who sat here and act like Mark Jackson said something that wasn't possible, that wasn't feasible, something that was ridiculous. The way that Mark Jackson was proud of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, I was proud of Mark Jackson because I was sold on Mark Jackson long before he ever received a head coaching job. He's proved it on the court and off the court. He kind of reminds me of a Deion Sanders. These are both guys that strike me as real men. And when you listen to them talk, they are leaders amongst men. And I think that's why they get so much respect around the world. Why wouldn't they? These are what real men are made of. They're building up the future generation, and they're instilling confidence in these young guys to be some of the greatest players that we ever seen. Not some of the greatest players, but the greatest players. I don't even know if it's a debate anymore about Steph Curry. Who's going to sit here and argue that Steph Curry isn't the greatest shooter that we've ever seen? This is not prisoner of the moment talk. If you've been watching this video all the way through so far, I've seen generations of it, including Michael Jordan. I just wasn't the biggest fan at the time, being a kid, but nonetheless, I was still around, but nonetheless, I was still witnessing, but even still, I was witnessing what turned out to be the greatest run in modern day history. And from Michael Jordan all the way now to Steph Curry, we've seen so many great players dominate their own generations. We're going to get back on topic and bring it back to this current generation because the future is now. But I got to shout out and salute to Mark Jackson, one of my favorite players and one of my favorite coaches. I'm pretty sure he'll be at the parade too. Now, this next thing that I'm going to speak about, it might sound a little crazy to some people. It was crazy to me when I was thinking about it. But as I was watching Game 3, I couldn't help but to notice that Tyrese Halliburton was kind of looking like Derrick Rose. Just a little bit. I'm not saying that he was D Rose, but Tyrese Halliburton was doing some things that was reminiscent and characteristic of Derrick Rose. And since we all getting to know each other, I'm Southside Trey. This is Worldwide Classic, talking about the NBA. Subscribe to Full-Time Digital House on YouTube. Since we getting to know each other, I think it's important to say this. Derrick Rose is and always will be my favorite basketball player. I know Derrick Rose is retired from the NBA. I know that Derrick Rose hasn't been the MVP Derrick Rose in a long time. And I know that it will be other generations of basketball players who one day might even surpass Michael Jordan. I don't give a damn. I don't care who it is. Derrick Rose is and will always be my favorite basketball player. I'm from the South Side of Chicago. I'm biased when it comes to Chicago people. Entertainers, athletes, artists. I love all my people that come from Chicago, especially when they come from the South Side. Derrick Rose is also from the South Side of Chicago, and he just so happened to play for the Chicago Bulls. It was just a beautiful thing to experience and to watch. I'm not going to get into the whole Derrick Rose thing now because I'm trying to keep it about the Pacers, but I had to let everybody know what that is, which is why I'm getting into this next topic. Now, when I talk about Tyrese Halliburton, this is why I don't think that I'm crazy when I say I seen some things from Tyrese Halliburton that was reminiscent of Derrick Rose. The floaters, the decision making, the spacing of the floor, the patience running the offense, getting players involved, the assists, taking the threes when it mattered. Not just because, especially in today's NBA. I've seen a lot of little nuances that I've seen from my favorite player, Derrick Rose, which essentially is why, again, I believe that the Indiana Pacers are going to win the NBA championship this year. One thing that I heard the commentary team say was that Tyrese Halliburton was labeled overrated. I still wonder if that's the case now. I never knew it was a situation where he was overrated. I thought he was just a young guy trying to prove himself in the league. And I think he's doing that right now. Even if the Pacers didn't win the championship, Tyrese Halliburton has definitely caught my attention. as an NBA fan for as long as I've been. I could appreciate the game that I saw last night. He already won me over with the Game 1 post-game interview from the Eastern Conference Finals. It seems like every time I tune in to a game that he's playing in, he really has his fingerprints over the entire game, being a leader on and off the court. He's really showing me something right now. A lot of y'all been watching the games more than me, so think about it. They put out the Cleveland Cavaliers. They put out the New York Knicks when the New York Knicks had a lot of momentum. A lot of people, I'm pretty sure New York included, thought that the Knicks had a real chance. The Indiana Pacers have not had an easy road to this NBA Finals. I'm not saying that OKC did. Even the people that they're playing in the finals, as I alluded to earlier, 99.9% of people I've asked has suggested that the Oklahoma City Thunder will indeed win the NBA championship. I damn sure wasn't hearing people say that the Pacers were even going to make it to the finals. And the Pacers are outplaying the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said, it was a great game. It was down to the wire, the way that NBA games should be, and quite frankly have been. These playoffs have been great. So all of the talk about viewership being down or the NBA being stale, stop it. Just cut it out. This is one of the playoffs that's exciting every year. Literally every year, the playoffs continue to be exciting. No knock on the young guys, but you don't have as many superstars as you once did. And that's only because, in my opinion, all of these young guys are equally as good. This is what new generation means. I don't think it's going to keep being cases of certain guys just being that much better than the rest of the league. All the young guys that's in the league are super talented, and any one of them can become a star on any given night. A prime example was last night in Game 3. I'm not sure if this guy was a rookie, but Benedict Mathurin, if I'm saying that correctly, I'm not sure if I heard them say that he was a rookie or not, but whether he's a rookie or not, he played like he was in the NBA Finals before. He played with poise and confidence, and he was aggressive the entire game. And he showed up like a guy that's ready to win a championship. He showed up like a guy that has a great leader on his team. It's all about the little nuances when it comes to championships. Records are a good indication of who can make it and who's a good team. But until you get on that stage, it's all about the intangibles. It's all about the fundamentals. That's why Michael Jordan never lost the NBA final, because he had his fundamentals down pat. Think about Michael Jordan's last shot against Utah with little time left in the fourth quarter to win his 6th NBA championship. Just go back and watch that shot. It wasn't a circus shot or a Steph Curry 3. It was a couple simple moves followed by a mid-range jumper. Just fundamentals. It's the basics that win you the championship. For me, this is not just because Indiana won Game 3. The most important thing that the Indiana Pacers had was defense. Because you could have all of the offense in the world, but you gotta make stops. The Indiana Pacers have guys that make stops. They have guys that could turn on another level of defense. And they are showing that right now. The finals is when teams evolve. The Indiana Pacers are evolving in front of our very eyes. Miles Turner, Pascal Siakam. If I'm not mistaken, he's already won an NBA championship. If I am wrong, let me know. But the last time I checked, Pascal Siakam has an NBA championship from his time in Toronto. That matters, because if he does have that championship, he's the only player on either team that has championship experience. They don't call it championship experience for no reason. It's championship experience. And he showed that in Game 3. It was one play where he tried to dunk the shit out of somebody. Luckily, the play was broken up and he didn't finish the dunk. Because if he would have finished that dunk, the momentum would have completely shifted to Indiana much earlier in the game. Again, once you've been watching the game for so long, you understand that certain plays can make and break the series. Certain wins can make and break the series. Just like when the Indiana Pacers beat the New York Knicks game 1 for the Eastern Conference Finals. I think New York was up 15 plus points, and Indiana stormed back to find ways to win. That's the blueprint of a champion. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm going to be driving 2 hours from Chicago to Indianapolis to help the Pacers celebrate their first NBA championship. Southside Trey will be in attendance, and Worldwide Classic will be in full effect. Y'all make sure y'all subscribe to my YouTube channel, Full-Time Digital House. Follow me on all social media, Southside_Trey. Catch y'all at the parade.